A long time in the making, Cal 2.0 is here. Here's a quick look at the new features and changes. With the new Cavalry Asset Library, saving your assets is as easy as just dragging it and dropping it. And when you want to bring the shape back in, simply double-click on it and it appears. A quick look at the UI. This bar right here is your library selector. Right now we only have one library, so that's all that's in there right now. This refresh button is for when you import existing libraries, which I'll show you later. This right here is the thumbnail size button. So as you click on it, the thumbnail gets smaller and smaller until it becomes just text. Click on it again and it goes back to the biggest size. This main window right here is where all of your assets will live. Down here is a search bar where you can search for assets by either name or by tag. This button is the Save Assets panel, which lets you save assets with custom names and make new libraries. This is the Settings button where you can change settings, and this is the External Libraries button where you can download curated libraries created by me. I'll show examples of what all of these buttons do later on. To save an asset with multiple layers, simply select all the layers you want and drag them to be saved. Now you'll notice that it put these two layers inside of a folder, and we can see when we double click to bring out another one, it comes out in a folder as well. This is to help keep things tidy so that when you bring an asset into a scene, it's not just a bunch of loose layers everywhere. The recommended workflow would be to either put all of your layers into a folder first, or if you have all of your layers as sublayers, or if you place all of your layers into a component first, then when you save it, it won't create the extra folder. By default, it names the asset whatever the top layer was named, but we can always change that. Just right-click on the asset and click on Edit Asset. In this panel, you can choose to move this asset to a different library if you have another one loaded. You can change the name here. You can add search tags, so we'll say red wheel, and just have the search tags separated by commas. And then the hover text can tell you what it is. So we just hit confirm, so you can see that the name has changed, that the hover text now says a cool red wheel. And if we search for red, it shows up. So to recap, if you have multiple loose layers, it will automatically group them and name it by whatever the top layer is. But the best practice is to place it into a group yourself or into something like a component, or have things nested in just a nice way so that when you bring it into your scene, it doesn't make everything really messy. More options in the right-click menu are toggle favorite. So with this toggled, anything favorite will be sorted alphabetically first, with everything else being sorted alphabetically after that. Next in the right-click menu, we have Edit Asset. We have Delete Asset, which does what it says, just deletes the asset. After that, we have Make a Thumbnail from the active comp. And so basically what that is if you want to make a custom thumbnail that's not just the regular one, you can make it to be whatever you want and then hit that and it will generate a new custom thumbnail and save it into the library folder system. So here I'm just rearranging this to make it look a little bit different. And then we'll just right click, make thumbnail, and now you can see it has that custom thumbnail. Next up, we can export asset as the CVC file. And so that will do exactly what it says. You just click that, it will export it as a CVC file. And we also have our license info at the bottom if you want to check that out. Okay, so up here we have the library selector dropdown. And we currently only have one library, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just save this using this Save Assets panel button. And so this is where you can actually make a new library here. So by default, you can just save it into the existing library, but I'm going to check this and make a new library. We're just going to call that New Fun Library. And then we're going to name our asset. And then we just hit Save Selection, and now we see that we actually now have two libraries. So that's how you can create a new library. So what we're going to do is here, if I want to move this to a new library, we just right-click, Edit Asset, and then here we just select the different library that we want, and then we just hit Confirm, and that'll push that to the new library. And so you can see it does generate a new thumbnail every time you push it to a new library. So if you want that new custom thumbnail, you will have to export it again and save it as a custom thumbnail. Sharing libraries or adding a library that somebody else has made is also super easy. So inside of our script folder, we go into our Library Assets folder, and then we go into our Libraries folder. And here we can see the two libraries that we've already created. And on the right, I have all these existing libraries that I made previously. So all you have to do is you just drag and drop it into this folder. And then going back to the plugin, you just hit this little refresh button. and now we have all three of the libraries. And because the thumbnails are shared, or they're stored inside of the library, it doesn't need to regenerate them. So they all just are already there. All these new assets are here, ready for use. To quickly show off the export as a CBC function, I have this little physics explosion asset that I've saved into my library. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to right-click and do export asset as a CBC file. And this will actually show you the path to where it's saving that file. So you know exactly where it's saving it. So we're just going to hit OK. And we can see if we come down here to our Finder, in our exports folder, our library assets exports folder, that's where it gets saved. And so then that's where you can find it and share it with anyone else. Next, we're going to take a look at our settings panel. So it's this gear icon here. Up here, you can set the library path to where it saves the libraries that you're creating. Next, we have regenerate library images, which is basically if something weird has happened with your assets and the thumbnails aren't showing up as they should be, you can just regenerate all of the library images here. And then we also have clean assets in active library. So this is just sometimes with a new update, there might be new metadata that's saved. And so if you have an older library, you can just click this and it will go through and it'll clean all of the data. Next, we have backup frequency, which is basically however many times the plugin is loaded or you turn Cavalry on, it will automatically back up your libraries into a backup folder, just to make sure that we definitely have them saved. And there's also a button to back up the libraries right now if you want to. And then we have our license info button and our reset preferences to default button. Next, we're going to check out the external libraries button, which is this one all the way on the right. These are libraries that I've created to just make different assets or different interesting things that are free for you to use for any project you want. So we have a sound effects one, we have textures, we have the two other libraries, Freebies and Video King, are just kind of interesting things that I've created. So if you just double click on it, it'll start to download. And if you go back in here, you'll see in this bottom section, now we have this new library. So if you click that, this is the Video King library that just has some random things that I thought were interesting and wanted to share. Next, let's talk about asset types. In this 2.0 version of Cal, you are able to save various asset types. So we can save images or audio or other things to our library. Here I'm getting a texture set up the way that I like it and how I think that it looks good on the shapes, setting all the settings, If I click on just the image layer and not the whole thing and drag that in, Cal will automatically understand that you just want to save the texture. And you'll see it adds these little dots at the top to indicate that this asset is a texture asset. So now if we delete that and we make a new shape, then all we have to do with that shape selected, we just double click here and it automatically applies the texture to that shape. And it has all of the same settings that we had set up before when we saved it. The next file asset that we're going to take a look at is audio. So if we pull in an audio clip, we can see in the timeline that we have the waveform. And so if we set our playhead at the part in the waveform that we think is like the hit of this audio, then Cal will actually save that. So if we put that here and then we pull this in, it saves the audio. So now let's remove that. Now if we put our playhead to frame 40, we'll see that when we bring this in, it imports it where the hit is on our playhead. So I'm just also going to do that real quick with this dice roll. And so we'll just put this kind of here towards the beginning, pull that in. So to demonstrate, I'm just going to bring in a couple of these explosions and we're just going to move them around. Go here, bring in another one, move that over here, another one more, right in the center. Okay, so we see we have pop, pop, pop. And so if we have our playhead right here, right where it pops, let's go back to our audio, bring in this one. You'll see that as I'm putting these in, they're just already lining up with the action of the animation. So that sound doesn't necessarily fit visually, but you get the idea. The next asset type that we're going to take a look at is math functions. So if we create a JS math node, there's a way to write an inline if statement in these JS math nodes, and I just always forget what that actually is. And so instead of having it written down on a note somewhere, I can just save it into the Cal library. So I'm going to go ahead and set that up real quick.
So we see that this is the actual function here, and this is how it would be set up. In order to save this, we can just drag the JS Math node into Cal and save it as an asset. And you'll see that the thumbnail shows the actual function. And then we can also just right-click, edit asset, and change the name, so we know that this is an inline if function. And so now if we delete this JS Math node and then create a fresh one, all we have to do is, with that layer selected, double-click, and we have our function back in place.